It is Thursday, the 14th of November, 2024. My name is Pigeon Rose, and this is my song of the day. It's day 4 in Desert Bus week here, although I am actually recording this during day 1 of Desert Bus, because I record these in advance, of course. That's how a daily podcast works. And as of the moment that I am recording this right now, hold on, I'm going to switch to the Desert Bus feed. They've been going for 17 hours and 21 minutes, and they've raised $88,360. That's wild! They didn't even raise that much the first year I watched them, I think. I don't know if I mentioned this in the episodes, actually. I've been watching them since Desert Bus 4, so 14 years. Technically 15 Desert Buses in 14 years, so that's crazy. But anyway, today we're talking about a song by another Canadian band called Barenaked Ladies, and that song is called If I Had $1 Million. Now, this song is one I probably would have discovered outside of Desert Bus anyway, because I have listened to some Barenaked Ladies here and there, mostly because of Rooster Teeth, because Ed Robertson played Flowers in Red vs. Blue, and Rooster Teeth did like a few of their music videos. But anyway, this song is a recurring segment on Desert Bus. It's sometimes come up in the Ice Cream Chords, where Pigeon plays some chords and people just chip in with whatever songs, and then they end up doing like a lot of If I Had $1 Million because it's so simple. And then there's been some years when they've just done If I Had $1 Million on its own, because why not? It's a fun song. And yeah, it's great. It pops into my head whenever someone says $1 million, along with Dr. Evil, of course. And someone will say like, you know, if I had $1 million, and then my mind will be like, if I had $1 million. Anyway, I don't think we need to give it any more of an intro. Let's just go listen to it and then come back in a few minutes and talk about it. And that is If I Had $1 Million by Barenaked Ladies. Now, the whole thing is just riffing on the idea of if I had $1 million, and then it's like I'd buy you something that would impress you, like a romantic thing, like I would buy this thing for you, right? It actually originated when Stephen Page and Ed Robertson were camp counselors together, and one of them started like, I think it was Page, started like improvising this song as like kind of a sing-along thing with the kids at the camp, and then he like brought it to Ed Robertson, and they were like, oh, yeah, we could write a song out of this. And so it kind of has this kind of improvisational feel, because it's this call and response of if I had $1 million, and then a thing, and then a response to that thing, you know? And it's just great. It's just a very fun song. That's why they end up singing along to it so much on Desert Bus. Although I always think of the time when they did it in the Ice Cream Chords, and Serge just started leading it off with if I had $1 million, I'd buy you a house, and the whole group was going, you know, I would buy you a house. And then eventually they got to the part where he just goes, you know, if I had $1 million, if I had $1 million, I don't know the next line. And then the rest of the the room just sings back, I don't know the next line. Anyway, let's go through the lyrics, shall we? So it starts off with, because the lyrics have the call and response of if I had $1 million, if I had $1 million. I'm not going to say it twice every time. I'm just going to say if I had $1 million, unless there's a variant to it, obviously. So it starts off with, if I had $1 million, well, I'd buy you a house. And if I had $1 million, I'd buy you furniture for your house, maybe a nice Chesterfield or an ottoman. And if I had $1 million, well, I'd buy you a K car, a nice Reliant automobile. And if I had $1 million, I'd buy your love. So I feel like the first verse is the most quote-unquote normal verse. It's just like, you know, if I had $1 million, I'd buy you a house. It's like really standard stuff. It makes me think like, if I had a hammer, I'd build a house for you, right? That kind of thing. So here it's, you know, if I had $1 million, I'd buy you a house. But then it's, I'd buy you furniture for your house, which is a logical next step. But I just love that maybe a nice Chesterfield or an ottoman. Like, it's so just kind of like getting into these funny details. Specificity is always more touching or funny. And it's funny here. And then, you know, if I had $1 million, I'd buy you a car is like a normal sentiment, but I'd buy you a K car is a very specific reference to a specific type of Chrysler, the Chrysler K cars, you know, Chrysler LeBaron, Dodge 400. It's just a funny thing to be specific there. And then a nice Reliant automobile is a reference to the fact that one of the K cars is called a Reliant, the Plymouth Reliant. And then the last line being, and if I had $1 million, I'd buy your love. And so that's kind of an inversion, as it says in Genius, it's kind of an inversion of, I don't care too much for money, money can't buy me love. In this case, he's saying, I would buy your love. And then the chorus is, if I had $1 million, I'd build a tree fort in our yard. If I had $1 million, you could help. It wouldn't be hard. If I had $1 million, maybe we could put a little tiny fridge in there somewhere. It's such a funny thing here where he's like, if I had $1 million, I'll build you a tree house. Oh, that's lovely. And you could help. It wouldn't be hard. Which is really funny that he's forcing this person to help even though he has $1 million and he's doing this for them apparently. And then maybe we could put a little tiny fridge in there somewhere. And then the post-chorus bit is this little improvised banter. Now, every time they do this, they do different stuff. They actually, in the studio, they didn't want to lose the improvisational feel of it by writing something. So they just did so many different takes of it and then took the best one and chose the banter from that, And so the one that ended up in the album is, we could just go up there and hang out, like open the fridge and stuff, and there'd be all foods laid out for us, like little pre-wrapped sausages and things. They have pre-wrapped sausages, but they don't have pre-wrapped bacon. Well, can you blame them? Yeah. Just like a little silly, nonsensical conversation. And then the next verse, if I had $1 million, well, I'd buy you a fur coat, but not a real fur coat. That's cruel. And if I had $1 million, well, I'd buy you an exotic pet. Yep, like a llama or an emu. And if I had $1 million, well, I'd buy you John Merrick's remains. Oh, all them crazy elephant bones. And if I had $1 million, I'd buy your love. So there's a few things about this verse. The I'd buy you a fur coat, but not a real fur coat. That's cruel is a lyric that has always made me laugh because it's just so like, but not a real fur coat. That's cruel. It's very funny to me. But this lyric actually caused boycotting at Barenaked Ladies concerts by the Métis people, who are a native peoples in Canada, who basically said that this song was portraying fur trapping in a negative light, and fur trapping is like, it's one of the things that the Métis people historically have done, and they were saying that it was kind of shitty of them to decry it, like call it cruel when it's their livelihood. And the band basically replied, like, they released an official statement that was like, we're not trying to prescribe beliefs on other people, it's just our personal belief that we all like eat meat and wear leather, but fur is where we draw the line, especially as a statement of wealth, which I get, but it's so interesting that just like, a throwaway line in a comedy song can draw a reaction like that, and not unrightfully so, And then the rest of the verse is like specifically references to Michael Jackson's eccentric spending. So an exotic pet, I mean, he famously had a monkey. I think he had other exotic pets, although there is a mention of a monkey later. I'd buy you John Merrick's remains. So John Merrick was the Elephant Man, who was a man with extreme deformity, who was like a freak show in, I want to say Victorian England. There's famously a movie about him made by David Lynch called The Elephant Man. And Michael Jackson tried to buy his remains. I don't know the whole story, but it is true. Very weird. He wasn't successful in buying them, probably because that's fucking weird. But yeah, so that's why he says, oh, all them crazy elephant bones. And then it ends again with, if I had $1 million, I'd buy your love. And the chorus here is, if I had $1 million, we wouldn't have to walk to the store. If I had $1 million, no, we'd take a limousine because it costs more. If I had $1 million, we wouldn't have to eat craft dinner. And then the little post-chorus banter thing is, but we would eat craft dinner. Of course we would. We just eat more and buy really expensive ketchups with it. That's right, all the fanciest Dijon ketchups. And so, yeah, he's saying here, like, if you're wealthy, you don't need to walk to the store. You can get a limousine, because why not? And then Kraft Dinner. Kraft, of course, is the company that makes Kraft macaroni. As a non-North American, I have had Kraft macaroni and cheese, and it's vile. It's atrocious. It's probably because I had the American version. I don't know if the Canadian version is better, but, like, food standards make things taste so different from country to country. But an American friend of mine had a bunch of Kraft that she didn't want, and she gave me a bunch of boxes, because I was like, sure, I'll try it. And I had one and I was like, oh no. But anyway, just talking about Kraft Dinner, which is something so simple, and then saying they would buy expensive ketchup, and then he says Dijon ketchup, which is a joke about Dijon mustard, but I just love how it's so clearly improvised because he interrupts himself to make that joke. And anyway, the final verse is, if I had $1 million, well, I'd buy you a green dress, but not a real green dress. That's cruel. And if I had $1 million, well, I'd buy you some art, a Picasso or a Garfunkel. If I had $1 million, well, I'd buy you a monkey. Haven't you always wanted a monkey? If I had $1 million, I'd buy your love. So the joke here about I'd buy you a green dress, but not a real green dress, that's cruel, is a callback to the previous line about fur, but not a real fur coat, that's cruel. And that was improvised. The original line as written, I'd buy you a green dress with a tastefully rounded neck. But then Stephen Page sang the not a real green dress, that's cruel line as a joke callback to the previous bit. And Ed Robertson found it so funny that they decided to leave it in. again, which I think is great because it's my favorite line in the whole thing because it's just such a nonsensical, like it's making a value judgment on green dresses. It's very funny to me. Apparently that is also a line that is a reference to Michael Jackson because he bought Elizabeth Taylor a sparkling emerald green dress for an award ceremony. So that's lovely. Then we get, I'd buy you some art of Picasso or a Garfunkel, which is a good joke about Picasso being an artist and then Garfunkel being a singer and not a painter, but his first name is Art, so it's Art Garfunkel, right? I'd buy you some art is the joke. And then I'd buy you a monkey. Haven't you always wanted a monkey? I love the little he does. Probably again a reference to the Michael Jackson's Monkey, like I said. And then the outro is just, if I had $1 million, 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 I'd be rich. Classic ending to it. Instead of just ending with I'd buy your love again, it's just I'd be rich, because it's just true statement of fact. If I had $1 million, I'd be rich. Very funny. Love this song. I think it's so much fun to sing along with. I would love to have $1 million. That'd be great. And yeah, I just think it's quite sweet considering the idea of it, but it's also very funny because it subverts that idea in every single line. And that's pretty much all I have to say about this one. Although I will note, by the way, I worked it out the other day. This is the 200th episode of this show, which is wild. I had already planned this song for this episode, so it's not like some song about the number 200. Although the fact that it's still a song about a number is very funny to me. Also doing this during Desert Bus, also very funny. Hey, I'm coming to the end of my recording now. Let's see what they're at. They're at 89,836 now, and they're playing a game. Cool. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Please check out Desert Bus for Hope. Please hit like, hit subscribe, leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think. Tell other people about this show. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.
Break it down.
As I'm sure you gathered, it's a very similar. It makes you think, like, if I had a hammer, I'd build a house for you, right? That kind of thing. And also, I have herpes. Don't put that on the outtakes page. No one's going to get that joke. It's the Plymouth Barracuda. I can't pronounce Baccaruda. Baba Rara Cucudada. Well, it's not a Barracuda, man, but maybe you got a hit record. Hick. Haven't you always wanted a monkey? My monkey gets busy sometimes.